thought maybe we could take a quick look at it right now. Let's take a look. The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance. I love Jim Henson. Jim Henson's one of the biggest inspirations in my life. Can I say that? Yeah, I think that's fair to say. From the Muppets to Fraggle Rock to the Dark Crystal and all this stuff. I really love the Muppets and the puppets and the fantasy stuff, and that's kind of like been my fascination with puppets and fantasy. All stems from that. And you know, nowadays a lot of movies are CG. You don't really have a lot of practical effects, and I miss that. I miss that era when there was a lot more practical effects. So I haven't seen the new Dark Crystal series from Netflix. It did get canceled. I know it got canceled, which is like so shitty, and I know that like a lot of people are afraid of getting into new shows these days just because on Netflix, just because there's a high probability chance that they're going to get canceled. But at least we got a cool art book, so we can take a look at that. Let's take a quick gander at it for now. Let's make sure that our desk is not doesn't have any wet paint or anything. All right, there we are. Let's kind of move this stuff off to the side a bit. There we go. Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance, Inside the Epic Return of Thra. Let's try it. Let's get into this. Forward by Lisa Henson, by Daniel Wallace. This will probably get me going and to want to actually watch the series. Oh, and you know what? There is a From Software connection, and I wish I could find the screen cap, but I remember watching, I was reading an article or watching a documentary, a mini documentary of From Software in and around the time of development between like Bloodborne and maybe Dark Souls 3, sometime around that era. And they were in their studio, and there was this shelf that they had at From Software, a reference bookshelf filled with art books. And one of the art books was the art of the Dark Crystal, the original Dark Crystal. And that got my brain kind of like, my brain synapses firing, because suddenly certain characters and certain designs within Bloodborne started to make a lot more sense. Namely, the Wet Nurse, which is the second to last boss in Bloodborne, or possibly the last boss in Bloodborne, depending on what ending you want to get. Murgo's Wet Nurse looks like a Skeksis. Is that how they're pronounced? Skeksis from the Dark Crystal. And we might see the Skeksis here, but it's like this bird-like creature draped in a lot of cloth and jewelry. And sure enough, there's an enemy in Bloodborne, which is a bird-like creature draped in cloth and a lot of jewelry. And yes, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the inspiration touchstone point for that character. Anyways, let's go through this real quick, and you know, we won't go through every single thing. Just kind of want to look through it quickly. Mando, Murgo's Wet Nurse is either the final, second to last, or third last, depending. Yeah. On certain choices. Yeah. Like if you're doing a speed run, like any percent, Murgo's Wet Nurse is the only one that you'll need to fight, because you can get the credits rolling like pretty much soon after that, right? Ambitious new stage. This is really interesting here if you look at this piece of artwork. You can see that the it's been rendered with like this texture, and it's very immediate. It's a very kind of like, it's not really attempting to create like the form and shape of everything. A lot of this concept artwork is, you know, it's really intended to get across the intent and the feeling immediately without spending too much time on the nitty-gritty of the details. It's not intended to be, a final piece of artwork. It's simply concept artwork. And again, if you look at something like this, you can see a lot of the brush strokes and stuff on Photoshop or whatever software they're using. And it has this kind of like very easily repeated pattern that they've used a brush stroke for. We're getting into some of the puppetry, which I love. In another life, I worked in this industry, like in another dimension. That was my career path. I think I missed my calling, guys. I love this stuff. Is this Brian Froud? Yeah, this is Brian Froud creating dark crystal. Creates dark crystal magic at his studio in Devon, England. Yeah. So Brian Froud's still very much involved with the designs for this sequel series. Brian Froud famously made the art book about fairies, which I'm sure you guys probably have seen in like your library. It's probably in your library right now. Creation under the crystal's light. This is an example of the sculpting, and a beautiful sculpting job. You can really see the textures and the decorative kind of swirls, evocative of kind of like a Celtic pattern, perhaps. Very beautiful stuff. And here we have, what are they called? The Geth? No. The elf people. Which, honestly, they looked kind of creepy in the first movie. They looked always a little off and creepy to me. But yeah, there's the designs for them. Gelfling, yes, that's what they're called. And look at all the amazing kind of like costume and jewelry and stuff. I love stuff like this. This is real fabric, real jewelry, it's not CG, and it looks like something you can reach out and touch, right? And I just love that about movies of that era, and still to this day, there's still some people that work in that mode, that make movies like that. And I love stuff like that. And again, this is an example of like where all the puppeteers are. Yeah, amazing, Ashwin, yeah. You can see there's the actual puppet, and all the people behind the scenes involved in actually making the puppets move and come to life. Some green screen stuff. Guillermo del Toro uses a blend of CG and physical props and stuff. And puppets. And he said something along the lines of like, when you have trouble kind of discerning what is what, when you have trouble kind of like, the thing about CG is people can look at it and immediately say, oh, that's CG, right? Like you can kind of just immediately write it off and be like, oh, I know what that is, that's CG. But when you start to blend puppetry with CG, so like maybe the puppet is this physical thing, but then the lips and the facial expressions are CG. When you start to blend that's where you can create that confusion in the viewer, and such that they're not certain anymore what is what. And I think that's actually a really interesting strat. Ashwin, I remember seeing rigs like this when we made Critters. That's right. Apparently we had some of the same puppeteers as Ninja Turtles, dude. And both Labyrinth and Dark Crystal, nice. But I never found out who, because I worked on this in the story. Yeah. Yeah, Dark Crystal. I mean, I have to say that I liked Labyrinth probably a little more than Dark Crystal, but I still liked Dark Crystal. And it does feel real. There's something kind of, it's just this physical place, That's something that I find movies, I have a hard time getting into movies these days, CG movies and all of that. Like, Avatar is a good example. As beautiful as the Avatar movies are, in terms of the CG and stuff, it's exactly what I said. Like your brain just immediately says CG, your brain just immediately kind of writes it off, CG, and so you kind of dismiss it, or maybe that's not the right word, dismiss, but you immediately kind of like a portion of your brain has already kind of accepted that it's not a real place. And yet when you look at something like the Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, or this Netflix series, The Dark Crystal, you're not going to say that. Your brain isn't going to have that moment where it's like CG, write it off, It's not real. It's not a real place. These aren't real things. Because yes, indeed, these are real sets. These are real puppets. They're inhabiting a physical space. Light is physically light is light is hitting these things in a realistic way, right? This is neat. All sorts of cool sketchbook stuff. Ashwin Labyrinth is a better film overall. Yeah, 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 yeah. And that's not Henson, right? I don't think Labyrinth is Henson. I don't think so. Am I right? Am I wrong? I don't know. Ashwin with the puppets. You say puppets, but a part of her brain can still feel more suspended that it's alive. Maybe because the robotics seem more mysterious. I think it's also just because it's inhabiting a physical space and light is interacting with it realistically, and physics it's bound by the physics of reality. It sounds so stupid. It's bound by gravity, you know, in a way that CG has to, like, you have to have like computers working all night long processing that information to simulate light, simulate gravity and fabric and cloth and movement, and yet all of that stuff is effectively free when you're using physical props, when you're using puppets. I mean, when you look at something like this, when you look at this face, that's going to kind of take me out of it because it's just so bizarre looking. But my point still stands. My point still stands. It's so cool, man. When I saw the Turtles for the first time in the 90s, yes. It's bizarre. Yeah, that one, but you can touch it. I'm not sure if I want to touch that one. Here we are, the Skeksis. These are the ones that I was talking about that kind of resemble Murgo's Wet Nurse. There might be some better examples later, but this looks like something out of Bloodborne, and I feel very confident. What's up, Chuk? I feel very confident in saying that at the very least, in some fashion, Murgo's Wet Nurse from Bloodborne was inspired by the designs of the Skeksis. Yeah. Oh, Mando, yeah, you can see that. Thank you for doing it right. That's actually just my Yoda, my horny Yoda, which which Vanilla might be familiar with, but it is equally applicable to the Skeksis. Henson made Labyrinth. Yeah, for some reason actually wasn't sure that. I should have known better, but yeah. Because I have a 2-pack. Have you seen this, by the way, Chuk, the Netflix series? I haven't seen it. And this is another dollar store pickup. I showed you previously the Art of Diablo, which I got at the dollar store for $5. And I was streaming, and my brother just comes in, and he's like, "Here, I got this." And again, it was another thing from the dollar store. Holy. Lucky Ducky, yeah, what the heck? I don't think the first episode captured me. Oh, yeah, I haven't seen it, but at the very least, the art book is cool. We're just kind of going along. Yeah, see, look at this. Very, very much in the spirit of a kind of FromSoft haunting enemy with a slight turn towards the eccentric, I guess, rather than the haunting and horrific. So let's keep going, and again, I don't want to go through every single page. I'm not even sure that's like according to TOS. So let's kind of let's kind of blaze. Learned a lot since Dark Crystal. Yeah, man, I'm glad that this series got made in the sense that, you know, puppetry and all that stuff is around, and again, Guillermo del Toro with. Was it Pinocchio? I haven't seen it, but has anyone seen Pinocchio? That's a puppet joint, is it not? Chuk, I love that puppets are alive and well. Yeah, exactly. I really do. It I don't know. I guess it's like comforting for me to know that this is still a craft that's alive, still going on. It's cool. Oh, it's good, Chuk. I haven't seen it. I want to see it. I think he's been winning some awards for that. Steph wasn't a fan. Oh, Steph likes Toy Story 4 more than Toy Story 3, so I don't know. I don't know about Steph's taste. Just kidding. I haven't seen Toy Story 4. Ashwin, man, you know, in the 80s, this stuff had existed for decades in art, but no one had made it three-dimensional and made it in films like this. Just so cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool that, like there's been advancements too. It's not simply that they're just doing the same thing that they did in the 80s, but they've like evolved the techniques. And as a matter of fact, I don't know if we'll actually get to it in this art book, but there's someone on YouTube. There was a puppeteer who really blew up on YouTube, and he sort of I don't know, I don't want to say pioneer, but he stood out from the crowd by making like finger puppets, and he was able to make his finger puppets look amazingly articulated and beautiful, and the way they moved was so nice. And he was so good at this that the Jim Henson Company asked him to act and create a character for this show. So hopefully we'll get to it. Hopefully we'll get to that guy. Ashwin, by the way, how much of this is Brian Froud? He was the guy behind the... Yeah, so he did do some stuff. They showed some earlier stuff. And he did work on this as well. But I suspect not everything. This looks interesting. This looks like an RPG, like a video game or something. It seems like the map of the world, and it's based off of like a hexagonal grid. Reminds me of like a strategy game or something. If you want to check out pro puppet skills, check out the show Oobi. Where can I find this? Is this on Netflix? So this is a lot of prop design, or rather set design. So we're kind of getting away from the characters. I love set design too, mind you, but I like the characters more. Did we... Well, let's go back, loop around, because I'm lazy. It's a kid's show. I'll share a snippet on your Discord. Okay, cool. Thank you. This song played already. Okay, yeah, like I said, I don't want to go through every single page. Let's go. Ooh, wow, look at that. Look, I need to learn how to make stuff like this for my waifus and stuff. Make tables and pottery and shit. Wow, this is a huge set. Look how big this set is. And again, this is all for puppets, and yet this set is huge. That's wild. Gotta get the lighting. Very cool stuff. Yeah, I just love the creativity. Also, this is something that you don't really see. Like, as far as the fantasy and the designs, you know, there's something so, like, it's kind of dark, right? Like, when you think of fantasy that's intended for all ages or children or something, there's a tendency to make it look safe, but there's something kind of haunting and dark about fantasy from that era and fantasy that you're seeing here that I really like. And I guess again, GDT, Guillermo del Toro, is probably one of the few people that kind of work in that mode. Chuk, I love making dioramas. Yes, I've seen some of the stuff that you did, Chuk. Really awesome stuff, and I love to make more dioramas, more stuff. But it's kind of like I have to I have to get through all my projects that I have going on. But I have some ideas of new projects that I like to work on, and we're gonna get to that possibly this month once I get my current project done. Yeah, so there it is, guys. This is the art of the Labyrinth, a really nice art book that my brother found at the dollar store, the Dollarama in Canada. So if you're in Canada, got a Dollarama around you, take a look in the book aisle. You very well might see a really neat art book like this.